Scaphism, ancient Persia. Victims were placed in a hollowed-out tree trunk or between two boats, with their heads, hands, and feet exposed. They were force-fed milk and honey, which attracted insects to their bodies. Over time, they would die slowly from exposure, dehydration, and being consumed by insects. Think of it by the KFC guy. This is probably the most brutal torture method ever used in the history of humanity. I am the 69th century that these suspects were strapped to a chair and were forced to listen to this abomination of a song for hours on end. Legend has it that the TMKSI stands for talent. This method was so effective that 90% of victims outlived themselves before the song hit the 2-minute mark. The braver victims suffered damages to the ears, kidneys, balls, and the brain that this piece of shit was banned under the Geneva Convention. Brazen bull, ancient Greece. A hollow bronze bull was crafted with a door on the side. Victims were placed inside, and a fire was lit beneath the bull. As the victim was roasted alive, their screams would echo through the bull's hollow interior, supposedly sounding like the bellowing of a bull. Lingqi, ancient China. Known as death by 1,000 cuts, this method involves slicing the flesh of the victim piece by piece over a long period of time. It was used to prolong agony and publicly humiliate the condemned. Breaking wheel, medieval Europe. The victim was tied to a large wheel, and their limbs were slowly shattered with a hammer or club. Sometimes they were left to die of exposure afterward, while in other cases, executioners dealt the final blow by striking the chest or head. Judas cradle, medieval Spain. The victim was suspended over a sharp, pyramid-shaped seat and slowly lowered onto it. The sharp point would pierce the body, and the weight of the victim's own body would cause them to impale themselves further. Flaying, Assyrian Empire. The skin of the victim was carefully removed, sometimes while they were still alive. This excruciating process was meant to punish and terrify enemies or criminals. Saw, torture, ancient Rome. The victim was hung upside down, and then a large saw was used to cut through their body, starting from the groin and working downward. The position ensured that blood would flow to the brain, keeping the victim conscious for as long as possible. The rack, medieval Europe. Victims were tied by their arms and legs to a wooden frame, and rollers at either end would slowly be turned, stretching the body. This could lead to the dislocation of joints and even tearing of limbs. Rat torture, ancient Rome and other cultures. A cage with hungry rats was placed on the victim's stomach or chest, and heat was applied to the other side of the cage. The rats, desperate to escape the heat, would burrow into the victim's body,